Welcome back. Now, Sasko bread has been in South African households for almost 100 years. The brand has had a dynamic growth story that has continued under the umbrella of PepsiCo since 2020. Sasko's vision is to be the first $1 billion brand in the PepsiCo stable in Africa. The company invited us to its Shaka's Kraal bakery in Kwa-Zulu Natal for a tour of the state-of-the-art production line and to break bread. I caught up with Cornel Vermeulen, the General Manager of Bakeries at Sasko. I started off the conversation by asking him to highlight the size of the bread market in South Africa and Sasko's contribution in the pie.
The bread market in South Africa is about 2.4 billion loaves big.
Loaves a week?
Loaves big annually.
Okay.
Annually. And I think the size of the market is that, not talking specific numbers, but 1 out of 4 loaves will be a Sasko loaf that you purchase in this market.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. Now, you mentioned that the vision for Sasko is to make it the first billion rand company for
$1 billion bread.
Billion dollar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big number.
It's a big number.
For PepsiCo in Africa. What are the pillars then that you are building to get to that growth?
Yeah, it's all anchored in our People Who Care Make Things Better campaign. And those pillars that we talk about is sitting in the people, our planet, our consumers, our customers, and our communities. Yeah. And those are the things that we sort of focus on in terms of driving that successful business for ourselves.
You made a very interesting point. I want to start off with the kind of supply side first. You made a very interesting point in your presentation of what you provide to the traditional the traditional trade market and also the modern trade market. So I'm guessing that's informal versus formal, and it actually triggered a memory that I have. So I'm from a township, Motherwell, in Gqeberha, and I have a very fond memory of Sasko trucks coming in every morning to my neighbor's house. So he used to have a shop. So Sasko supplied the bread there. What does that story actually speak to? Because it's actually quite interesting that a smaller portion goes to the formal retail trade market and a bigger portion goes to the traditional informal trade market.
Yeah. Look, bread is the most affordable convenience you can get. So I think in terms of people living in townships, getting access to towns is driving this behavior. But if you roughly separate the South African market for bread specifically, the two subcategories will be modern trade, which will be then your modern trade, which will be 30%, and your traditional trade is still 70% in South Africa, which is your township communities.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is very, very interesting. And I mean, just obviously because now we want to look at the economics of the business. What do those look like in terms of your costs, your distribution kind of network? Because I know that a lot of bread companies, a lot of actually just manufacturing companies in general in South Africa are always talking about, building their plants and their factories so that they are efficient, so that they can actually have lean costs in this kind of economic environment in South Africa.
Yeah, I think the biggest drive in PepsiCo specifically is it's all about sustainability and efficiency that we drive. Yeah. And those pillars that I just mentioned to you. So one of the big focus area for the consumers is that the product must be reliable. You must trust the product, so it must be food safe. And of course, it must be affordable. And for those things, we need to continuously innovate in terms of our business. Yeah. So we are really hard at work in driving energy efficiencies, driving our overhead costs down so that we don't pass on those additional costs to our consumers or our customers. But there's continuously improvement in our business in terms of how we drive those efficient recipes, efficient processes in our business.
And I actually want to ask about that, because now you talk about the economics now when it comes to the customer. And there's a common saying that, when somebody talks about something that is insignificant in their life, they say that it doesn't change the price of bread. But we all know in economic supply and demand does actually move prices. How then do you work that out? Do you get to a situation where you actually do have to pass on those costs to customers? Yeah. How do you navigate that kind of environment, but also an environment in which the consumer is, operating under a low growth economic environment in South Africa.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's our reality. So
Yeah.
in terms of our raw materials, there's definitely on cost and there's inflation. And those get driven by all the micro and macroeconomic side that we're all aware of. I think where the secret is lying is to become more efficient in terms of your overhead and your production processes. That's where we try to sort of consolidate businesses, put it together in terms of more efficiencies and drive that through the process. But we really focus hard on that there's no leakage in our business. Specifically, we do energy audits in our plants. We are stuck with the equipment that we have, but we shouldn't allow any leakage. So we look at those efficiencies in terms of those pieces of equipment that they deliver on their promises as well. Otherwise, it will become too expensive for us to bake bread at a scale.
Yes. You mentioned innovation as well. And I guess, just innovation in terms of how you operate.
Yeah.
But we also need to look at innovation of the product.
Yeah.
Bread is it's just ingrained in our lives that you never really think of it kind of moving in any other direction. But you have lots of different flavors that have come to the fore. So how much more room is there for innovation in the bread market?
Yeah, I really think that in South Africa, the bread market has been very stable in terms of the core range, which is your white and your brown bread. I think where innovation for Sasko specifically sits is in the everyday plus loaves, which is your whole wheat bread, the high fiber loaves, and then obviously moving into speciality where we have bespoke plants that's looking after speciality loaves. And when I talk speciality specifically for our bread, it's our low GI range. We've got carefully designed plants that's very unique to us, to Sasko specifically. And I think there's so much health benefits sitting in those low GI loaves that you can still have your most affordable convenience and your sandwich on a daily basis and not feel guilty about it. And they're really tasty as well.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting because with a lot of products, people are now looking at the kind of demographic shifts that we are seeing in the population, particularly looking at the differences between Gen Zs and the other generation. And they have different tastes. Yeah. So would you say that the business is agile enough to cater to those shifts in consumer patterns and tastes?
Absolutely. I think one of our big values in PepsiCo is consumer centricity. And I think that's the one big thing that we continuously do. We listen to our consumers on a regular basis. We do surveys. We sit in when we talk to those consumers, we really we need to understand their needs and address their needs. These guys are buying our products and we need to be relevant. And like you said, the environment is also changing in terms of how we do shopping. Online has become a very big thing as well. And especially the new generation, they're always on their cell phones. So they prefer to use that sort of modem as well for purchasing as well. But yeah, we have to keep up with the times. We have to be agile enough. And I think that's a big focus, apart from having the right products, but having the right processes and the vehicles of getting into the market as well. Yeah.
I do understand that you have a wide footprint throughout the country, but today we are at the Shaka's Kraal bakery that is in KZN. You brought us here. What exactly is the significance of this bakery?
Shaka's Kraal is your typical modern bakery with a lot of automation that goes into the processes. But it's also the heartbeat of our baking business in the second biggest bread market in South Africa. And therefore it's very critical to the success of Sasko and also food security for the local people in the KZN region as well.
That was Cornel Vermeulen, the General Manager of Bakeries at Sasko.